Good morning, everybody. Again, how's everybody doing? Good? Excellent, excellent. So I want to take a second. I was just introduced, but I want to introduce myself again and tell a quick story before I introduce my distinguished panel. I joined InterSystems, if you were at Ready last year, I joined InterSystems 2 weeks before Ready and was on the main stage. So, no pressure in meeting everybody, which was great. But what we did during that time with the executive panel is we committed to investing in our managed services and SaaS products. And what I can tell you, I'm very proud to sit here and say, is we have spent 2025 and accelerated in 2026 those investments. And it's really exciting and empowering. And so coming from the outside, you hear about built differently, you hear about different by design, you hear about the culture. Being almost a year in, as of almost a couple weeks from today, it has been an amazing journey, and we're pressing very hard and made a lot of progress, and you'll see quite a bit next year. With that, I want to frame this discussion as more of outcomes. We're talking about managed services, but I want to talk about outcomes. And I'm joined by distinguished CEOs, so we're going to look at this from a business perspective. But when you think about it, whether it's executives, whether it's clinicians, whether it's operators, the pressure to do more is very large. And nowadays, they're being asked to do more, sometimes with the same or less. And when you think about just pulling that all together, complete end-to-end solutions, and doing that was a challenge, keeping it up to date, understanding the infrastructure, the software, the components, the APIs, how it all fits together. But then from there, add AI to that mix, and then try and do that within the certification, the compliance, and attestations required. That becomes significant, a heavier lift. And so that's where InterSystems and our investment in managed services is really here to help you. And we have offerings all the way from the basic of infrastructure services all the way through turnkey, where we manage upgrades, customization, support, and of course the whole life cycle of your experience. So with that today, we're going to go through two models. One is hosted in our data centers, because we have our own data centers globally, and then one that's hosted in our SaaS on public cloud. And so with that, I'm going to let, of course, Junaid and Mark introduce themselves, but I want to thank them both for being on the panel. This is from their perspective. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Junaid, and he's going to introduce himself and talk a little bit about HealthConnect Texas.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, for inviting HealthConnect Texas to the main stage. My name is Junaid Hussain. I am the Chief Executive Officer of HealthConnect Texas. We're the health information exchange for the great state of Texas. We coordinate care for the community by integrating all the different electronic health record systems of provider organizations, large and small, to create that 360-degree perspective on the patient so that clinicians have access to patient medical information available to them right at the point of care. And we do all the great things that we do in our communities in Texas. As a 501c3, we're a not-for-profit entity. We're here to serve all the wonderful communities and the richness of the communities that we serve in Texas. We have 27 million patients in our clinical data repository. That's roughly 90% of the state. We have quietly become one of the largest health information exchanges in the nation.
Great, and thank you. Mark, please.
I'm Mark England. I'm Chief Executive of a technical consultancy called Integrella. We're based in London, the Middle East, UAE, and in India. We're focused on improving the value and outcomes for our customers using our technical skills. We work particularly focused on integration and making solutions fully integrated within complex enterprises. About 60% of our businesses are in healthcare, but we also work across other sectors as well. And we've been around for about 18 years, working with InterSystems throughout that time. I've only been with the company the last 6 months as a chief executive, but I was 18 years ago their first healthcare customer. And so.
Excellent, excellent. I'm still the youngest, meaning the shortest time with InterSystems. So from a standpoint of Junaid, let's start with you a little bit. How is InterSystems technology, before we get into the services side of things, how has InterSystems technology helped you in your business and helping patients in your communities?
Sure. So Texas and Southeast Texas in particular, where HealthConnect was first founded in the greater Houston area, it's a very complicated healthcare market. It's one of the most competitive healthcare markets in Texas and across the nation. Really fundamentally the problem that we have is a data fragmentation problem. Data exists in multiple silos across healthcare organizations, large and small. whether it's small physician office practices, federally qualified health centers, large health systems, payers, the public health system. And so using InterSystems tools and solutions, HealthShare, that's enabled us to aggregate, normalize, deduplicate all of this information. And then that information is available to us in our clinical data repository. And that clinical data repository serves as a foundation. It serves as a foundation for us to do a lot of really incredible things to improve the health and wellness of our communities, whether that's public health, whether that's research, whether that's analytics. And recently we've been making a bigger push into non-medical drivers of health.
Excellent, excellent. And Mark, I spoke to you a little bit about the complexities of London and the care and what you do with 999 service. Can you describe a little bit of that and then come together with how you're using HealthConnect Cloud in this case and how it affected your approach?
Yeah, of course. So we're using HealthConnect Cloud, and the outcome we're trying to focus on is improving what is, in most health systems, one of the most pressured points, the front door of the ED department and the congestion that happens as patients arrive on emergency pathways. And we're delivering that across London. Now, I know it's a US audience, so Peter counseled me to provide a little bit of context about London and the NHS. And so London, big city of about 10 million people. There are 30 different ED departments, and as Tim Ferriss said, they're called trusts. And they're quite autonomous, really, those 30 organizations. They choose their own EPRs. So there's about half Epic, half Cerner across London, so you've got 30 different ED departments. But we have got some advantages over the complexity of your system where we've only got one ambulance service, the London Ambulance Service, which is delivering, it's got about 1,000 emergency vehicles, 6,000 paramedics, and they're focused on getting those patients who've called 999, which is our 911, into the hospitals effectively. We have about a 50% conveyance rate. So the paramedic will arrive at the scene and only 50% of the patients they take to hospital. They decide what ED to go to, and then they determine the route. So that's the situation. And we've put we have a lot of, you probably see headlines, and I've seen headlines in the US about delays in handover between the ambulance crew and the hospital staff at the front door of the ED department. So we deployed HealthConnect Cloud because, for particular reasons, really, because it's got the scale to cope with the growth which we foresee along these pathways, but also it sits across so many different organizations, not just the ambulance services and the emergency department, but also there are community providers, behavioral health, mental health providers in that context, and many community physicians and GPs who are involved in those pathways, both in hours and out of hours. So it's a very complex system with many moving parts, and we've started the approach focusing on the most urgent, the 999 calls that the paramedics take to hospital and hand over. And we're about 30% through the rollout. We've done some of the bigger hospitals, Imperial, King's, Guy's and Tommy's, the big acute hospitals. And we're seeing some really interesting impact upon the outcomes, particularly focusing on the speed of handover, the safety and accuracy of the handover. Because what happens is, as the paramedic captures the data on the patient in the community, and as they get them into the ambulance and they make the decision to convey to hospital, the data moves ahead. And in Epic and Cerner, we've built a screen which gives a detailed inbound screen of the patient that's coming, is on its way. And so when the patient arrives, it's often refreshed, the data, if there are any more vitals taken during the transit journey. When the patient arrives, the handover process is expedited and the data is already in the system, and so it can focus on an accurate conversation between the clinicians handing over and not the transcription of the key information. But also, our more forward-thinking hospitals are starting to look at the inbound screen and say, can we get the patient to the right place first time for the right care? And it might not be ED, it might be straight into a stroke pathway, or it might be straight into a frailty pathway. And we see that as a really important way of splitting the queue of patients that is backing up in ED, taking maybe 5% of that away. So that's what we're working on, and the HealthConnect Cloud is working very well at the moment, but much complexity, in particular organizational complexity at that scale.
Well, and I think both examples are powerful because they're about improving patient care, clinicians' experience, and of course, safety for ambulatory care. So Janae, talk a little bit more, now we're focusing a little on the managed services relationship, because you are one of our foundational clients in the US data centers, which is kind of interesting. And again, just talk about that journey, because you've been with us along the way.
Sure. So HealthConnect Texas, our journey goes back 9 years, and we jumped all in on managed services back in, call it 2016, 2017. And that was very intentional. You know, the way that I view kind of our managed services relationship is that if you kind of frame it from the perspective, I like to think of it as kind of, it enables us to, number one, focus. It enables us to operate at scale, and number three, it enables us to have greater impact for our communities. So, you know, we on the focus side, I think that we are interoperability experts. We're not data infrastructure experts, and as interoperability experts, we need to focus on the things that we're good at, and which is taking data and making that data come alive. I think that from an IT infrastructure perspective, the having managed services control that aspect of our business frees up our time. It frees up our time to focus on higher value-added activities that we, as a health information exchange, need to focus on. We need to focus on our communities and be more engaged with that. And managed services allows us to free up that time. And then scale, you know, we have 27 million patients that we serve across all 254 Texas counties. And that's across rural areas and the urban areas. And in the Triangle region, we have a lot of penetrance. That's Houston, Dallas, and Austin, San Antonio. That area is roughly, call it 22, 23 million patients. And so that kind of scale requires an infrastructure that that's reliable, consistent, and allows us to do the incredible things that we do with our HealthConnect, or with our InterSystems tools.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. And then you've mentioned a little bit about the scalability. What other kind of connectivity and other things, ease of, did you feel like you got from the SaaS and kind of the managed service engagement?
Yeah, I think the security and high availability angle is, because you know, I've been a chief information officer in a trust myself previously. You struggle to manage infrastructure and infrastructure expertise, and to be able to have an infrastructure partner like yourselves and AWS. These are the most critical of pathways. If we're making decisions about patients on a stroke pathway where it's absolutely critical, time to needle, et cetera, those sort of pathways that will determine the level of disability for life, we want to be really sure that we've got the most robust solution that will be highly available. And I was very impressed to tell a story. Last year there was an outage on AWS, in fact. I don't really understand how you did it, but AWS went down, some problem in South Carolina, I'm not sure what it was, because we lost access to HubSpot and various corporate systems, so we realized something was up with AWS. And my first thought was, what's happened to the HealthConnect cloud? You know, we only had 3 sites live at that point, but for some reason you failed over between a couple of locations, you know, within AWS, and it just carried on seamlessly. And it's that level of reliability and availability that we need. But also scale. If you've got an individual on-prem solution, we're very quickly uncovering more use cases that need integration within urgent and emergency care. I mean, the first one we found was, we were looking at the 50% of patients, as I said, who are conveyed to hospital. The 50% who aren't conveyed to hospital have sought emergency care. So they've dialed 999, an ambulance has been sent to them, and they've decided not to take them to hospital. The likelihood of those patients popping up somewhere else in the urgent emergency care system in the coming weeks or days or hours even is quite high. And at the moment, there was no access to those records. So London Ambulance Service came to us and said, could you make a take the details of the non-conveyance and put it in. And then it only took another few months, and they said, well, we've got a whole non-urgent number, 111, where often if you call 111 seeking help, you don't want an ambulance, but you want support and guidance. And that information is very fragmented at the moment, and 30 to 40% of those calls end up speaking to a clinician for a consultation. And so they were saying, again, high risk of popping up elsewhere in the system. Is there a way we could use the HealthConnect cloud to bring that data together in the London Care Record? So I think both on the high availability piece and on the ability to scale, because you can just see it, we're not sure where it's going, but we can just see more and more opportunities to join up pathways. And also on the, I think cyber's on everyone's minds, but when you see the sort of Claude, ability to expose vulnerabilities and exploit them, and the generative AI potential to change the cyber game, I think having big partners who've got the resource to focus on it is really critical.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that. In Texas, Texas is obviously a very conservative state, and we work with a lot of organizations that take a very obviously a very serious stance when it comes to a strong security posture. And I think for a lot of HIEs, the vast majority of HIEs in the nation are not-for-profit organizations, and we run fairly lean. My team is on the larger end. We're almost 30 people, but the vast majority of HIEs are tiny. And so, but we're across the nation, a lot of HIEs are managing copious amounts of protected health information. We have 27 million patients in our clinical data repository, hundreds and hundreds of terabytes of data. And so the institutions that bestow their most privileged and confidential information and their protected health information with us, we need to ensure that data is protected and secure. Because as Mark pointed out, cyber events happen very frequently. And so this is one very strategic area that we rely on managed services for, to protect our data assets from malevolent actors.
And I think if you haven't, everybody's probably seen the news lately that threat surface is growing by exponential rates, because even if AI may not be profitable, it's certainly being used for other reasons, which is in some cases, talking back to Tobias, but from a standpoint of that security, and I think working together on how we make sure that happens across the board. And I think your comment of high availability is something that we bring to our core, because we make sure there's the software and the management and the customizations of the other pieces, but from a foundational element, we work with clients on their level of protection. And in that specific example of outages, without getting technical, we take multiple steps across AZs, across protection zones to make sure that you will experience what you experienced, and that's the power of what we do, working together and designing to your kind of desires and goals. From a standpoint of innovation, you've already talked about a couple of examples, Mark, and Junaid, you're thinking about kind of your growth. You're actually, of course, I'll let you mention, but you're kind of changing a little bit, and so let me let you do that, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, so HealthConnect Texas has gone through a period of innovation and growth. We went through this, we recently merged with our Community Information Exchange, an organization called the Patient Care Intervention Center, PCIC. And as health information exchanges, we focus on a patient's longitudinal journey. A community information exchange focuses on a patient's social services journey. So, is a patient food insecure? Do they have adequate? Do they have a roof over their heads? Or do they have adequate transportation to their medical events? So all of the social determinants of health that focus on whole person care. And so this is part of a kind of a larger national conversation that's been happening over the last several years. Health information exchanges are evolving towards providing these other additional value-added services. If we really want to solve some of the toughest problems in healthcare, we need to focus on these non-healthcare related issues. And so this was kind of the impetus of joining forces with our community information exchange. So that was a 15-month journey. That transaction closed at the end of 2025. So we are in month 4 of this grand experiment. And I want to make a shout out to the folks at Georgia and Denise Hines, and they do fantastic work in Georgia. You know, through the lens of a chief executive officer, this is the decision for an HIE to move into the non-medical drivers of health space. It's either do you build it, do you buy it, or do you partner? And I think for our friends in Georgia, they made the strategic decision to build it on their own. That is very, very hard to do, and they are having just an outstanding success. So I applaud them for their efforts. Georgia really kind of set the stage for everyone else. And we at HealthConnect Texas looked at what they did and said, well, it's hard to do that. And so but there was this wonderful community information exchange right in our backyard. And we said, let's see if our missions align so we can do some incredible things to support whole person care in Texas. So essentially, we have doubled in size. We've doubled our data assets. And now we have all these wonderful data assets. And now we start the conversation on how can managed services take the intersection of healthcare data and social services data and really make this data come alive.
And I think with the tools we saw, obviously, all week, that fits together, and somehow looking at how AI can advance that, and again, helping not having to worry about GPUs as a service and other things, that's something we can help, obviously, with and make a little more simple. Mark, give some of the ideas that you have of things. I know we free up your teams for certain things, but where else are you looking? And again, you've talked a little bit more about your expansion, but what other things have been a big factor for you on the cloud journey and just the difference between kind of hosting and what you're used to as you led these different institutions and now you're using public cloud for the connectivity and the other pieces?
Yeah. Well, I think if I stick to the urgent and emergency care pathways that we're looking at, there's some of the innovations happening outside of the cloud. I mean, the London Ambulance Service is looking, and they've done a lot of work of ambient recording within the ambulance and at the point of conveyance decision and during the ambulance. And that's leading to some of the flows that we're putting in place and the clinical consultations that have happened being transcribed and then summarized and coming across those interfaces. But I think one of my reflections on here today is that health share presentation yesterday of the ED presentation with the aorta abnormality, which was because we've spent a lot of time investing in bringing together data in shared care records. You know, health share is one of the systems quite widely used in the UK, and local health and care record aggregations. But the more you talk to people and clinicians who work in the urgent and emergency care pathways, if you're an out-of-hours GP and you get a phone call coming in and you open the health share, you're faced by thousands of artifacts, and it's very difficult to tell any signal from that noise, and you just start taking the history on the phone, and you try and manage the patient there almost without recourse to the record. And to see that health share example yesterday, where there was those 5 different records across 5 different providers brought together and then summarized with some context as this is an ED presentation. I mean, it's really really inspiring to see those sorts of use cases, because I think within our system and with where we're operating, I can see immense benefit from that. And it'll be a strong pull for that sort of technology. You won't be pushing that on people, because people are saying at the moment, I just can't make sense of it. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's an innovation case that's very strong.
And I think, just to jump in on that, I think that's where the partnership goes, and John mentioned this in his presentation. It's that one of the things we're trying to do in the managed services space too is there's a lot of different components to make a solution. And so what we're asking clients, if you're interested, work with your teams in InterSystems to talk about your objectives and your goals and the outcomes you're trying to achieve, as a kind of a way of us being able to look at it, come back with those proposals and solutions together. So I think it's definitely a partnership and it's a relationship, and that's the most important thing I think for all of us. And
yeah, and we've our managed services relationship, as I mentioned, goes back 9 years, and I don't want to be Pollyanna about it. Managed services relationships, they ebb and flow, right? I think there are times when you have spirited conversations on the phone with your partners on the other side, and I think that I'm going to take a quote from everyone's favorite rock star, Don Woodluck. When he opened up the leadership conference on Tuesday, he said that. Don, what was it that you said? You said that. Progress happens when friends disagree. And I think that we can, I think that's such a fantastic quote because that encapsulates our managed services relationship. That we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. And we work collaboratively together to ensure the best outcomes for our communities and the institutions that we serve.
That's right. In the managed service context, just to take it away from, I've been talking about London, but I think there is the HealthConnect cloud offer reduces the barriers to entry for organizations who have a really strong but might be quite narrow integration need. And I think it's, with private health companies, now they might be in not health tech so much as companies that are focused on diagnostics or who are focused on telecare. And their core business is getting a radiologist looking at a CT and providing a safe and timely report. And that's their core business. Dealing with all the integration and the complexities of the different vendors and the every time they get a new customer or a new contract, they need to integrate into a new provider or a new plan. And it's the break on their actual business development and growth. But they are often with a very small integration approach and at a very small level. Now, if you're going to have an on-prem solution and a high license cost and a high entry, and I think you've got the ability in HealthConnect Cloud, and we've got the ability to take it and to present it as an entry point, which gives you all that high availability, the cybersecurity and the functionality that's required. And we can build our services on top of that, our support services, and we can offer that to smaller companies. And in fact, smaller providers as well. We have providers in the community and mental health space, the community and behavioral health. And healthcare is becoming more and more joined up. It's such a team event, and they're being asked to bring their data and integrate it in various situations. But they don't have the capability. They're at smaller organizations, and their digital teams are very threadbare. And so if you've got a managed service that has a right entry point and can grow with them, some of those private health companies will grow. Diagnostics is a very highly fast-growing field. Some of them will be very successful, and we'll all win on a managed service basis, which is based on volume. And so I think that's an area where your cloud offer and us together with a comprehensive sort of managed service we can offer is an opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned in the beginning the investments we're making in this space to continually drive more SaaS, drive more of that fully turnkey solutions for those clients who want it. I think that's going to be, for certain clients, that's going to make a total sense. For others, just the infrastructure, whatever works. But especially if you're trying to get to a journey on public cloud, that is one of the lowest barriers of entry to just get it provisioned very quickly, start to consume and be able to connect people and deliver results is very, very powerful, and again, you'll see that across more and more of our platforms, especially in the next, we'll call it 6 to 12 months. So very excited about that. What I wanted to do is kind of hand it to both of you, final thoughts on how you look at this as you go forward, how your organizations look at that and that relationship. And so I'll start with Junaid, but then Mark kind of close us out.
Sure. I mean, I think that for us, our managed services relationship enables us to think bigger. It allows us to be bolder. It allows us to focus on the things that really matter. It allows us to, it frees up our time. We are interoperability experts. We are our citizens of the great state of Texas that want to improve the health and wellness of all Texans. And but we're not data infrastructure experts. And so that relationship allows us to focus on the things that we're good at. We have a motto at HealthConnect Texas, which is connected for a healthier Texas. And through our managed services relationship, I really do feel that embodies the core motto of our company.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I can see, exactly, we're not infrastructure experts. We're much more, we understand interoperability, we understand the outcomes that our clients are trying to achieve. And the idea to have such a robust managed service partner, but also, as I said, I've been in the role about 6 months, so I'm slightly out of date with InterSystems technology. It's been great to come here and see the platforms you're building and the capabilities that are embedded within them, because I can just see that leads to, together, we've got an opportunity to take those and present them and build them into clients' workflows and processes and release value for all. So I can see, because it's, as the last speaker was describing, there's so much hype and noise, and it might be keeping your stock market up over here, but it's hard to, and keeping YouTube busy with all the Vibe videos, but it's hard to cut through and see quite where this really sustainable, enterprise-grade, embedded value is going to come out of AI. And but I can really see some of the efforts you're making in investing in the platforms. That case yesterday when you were talking around the ward system was taking over the shift, and the preparation of the discharge summary, and you can just see within the healthcare context quite what the potential is, and that's not the sort of thing we can build. We're not infrastructure experts, but we have got software teams, but we haven't got the engineering capabilities that you've got and the pedigree. So I think it's a very symbiotic partnership. And I think we were discussing, weren't we, how you exploit as InterSystems exploit the AI market, and do you want to grow bigger teams and bigger, or is it best to let your partners grow their teams and feed the benefit through in that way? I think that's an interesting discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you both for joining us and giving your perspectives, and appreciate, of course, the partnerships we've had for so long. So, again, thank you very much, and thank you all, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.